Thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, we can move straight on to the disclaimer. As a reminder, I'd just like to remind everybody that some of what I say is future looking and our actual results may differ. And I would encourage everybody to look at our ASX filings for a discussion of the risk factors. So on to what we do. We conduct research, design, develop, manufacture, and distribute unique 3D printed implantable scaffolds that facilitate vascularization to accelerate bone and tissue regeneration. Most of our core product variants are CE marked. We have US FDA 510K and Australian TGA clearance. And to date, our scaffolds have been applied in around 50,000 procedures globally, 20,000 of those over the course of last year. Our biomimetic scaffolds are made from the same material as dissolvable sutures, polycaprolactone, and are naturally and predictably resorbed over time, leaving patients with only their own natural healthy bone. Our core products, so Osteoplug, Osteomesh, and Osteostrip, are primarily indicated for use in over 1.1 million cranial and maxillofacial procedures conducted yearly. And we compete for a share of the annual total available bone graft and permanent implant markets, which are estimated at 3.9 billion and 100 billion US dollars respectively. Traditional bone graft and permanent implant procedures have a high incidence of post-operative complications. Clinical research suggests that complication rates in these two fields are up between 19 and 33% respectively. Bone graft procedures create secondary surgical sites with the usual associated risks and are more prone to causing patient discomfort. And the success of bone graft procedures is not guaranteed, as there's a potential for the body to absorb the graft without generating bone regrowth. As the use of Osteopore's core products don't require any changes to current clinical procedures, they're really easy to micro-adjust in the operating theatre for a better fit, and they result in exceptionally low cost post-operative complication rates. The technology is positively impacting patient outcomes. On the next slide, we'll look at the products in a little bit more detail. So they're all manufactured from a porous, or more manufactured as a porous interconnected microarchitecture that has very similar mechanical properties to human cancellous bone. Once they've been implanted, blood and cells are absorbed into the scaffold pores through capillary action, creating a regenerative environment that is ideally suited to tissue formation. With revascularization, osteoblast activities resume and cells migrate and proliferate to regenerate bony tissue. While that's happening, the body completes its natural healing cycle. The implanted scaffolds are resorbed over a period of 18 to 24 months in the form of water and carbon dioxide, leaving the patient with only natural healthy bone. Osteoplug is available in a range of sizes and is designed to snap fit perfectly into post-trephination burr holes to provide patients with outstanding functional and aesthetic outcomes. Osteomesh is our most versatile product with diverse applications in cranio-maxillofacial and aesthetic procedures. The product is easily customizable in the operating theatre using surgical scissors and warm saline solution. Osteomesh has proved particularly effective in repairing orbital floor fractures, with clinical research suggesting that the use of Osteomesh showed an improvement in outcomes when compared to permanent implants. Osteomesh is also used in corrective septoplasty and aesthetic rhinoplasty procedures. Osteostrip is an integrating implant to restore surgically created bone defects in craniotomy. The implant is used to fix the bone flap after surgical intervention and assists healing by bridging the gap between the bone flap and the host bone. Osteopore also collaborates with a number of surgeons around the world to produce patient-specific implants, what we call PSIs, to repair bone removed because of disease or accident. Most commonly, PSIs are developed to replace larger cranial areas or sections of tibia. And recently, a few of the Australian procedures featured prominently in national media on Channel 9's A Current Affair. In Singapore, Scaffolds we have scaffolds that now have regulatory approval for dental application and are generating revenue. More work is required in other countries to complete clinical trials as part of the regulatory approval process, but we're very excited about the potential growth this product should contribute once it's available for use in all of the major markets. Our work on orthopaedic implants is advancing steadily, and investigative devices are already available for use in approved clinical procedures. Now, alongside dental and orthopedic applications, we also conducting exploratory work with alternative standard shapes, including modular inserts for long bone repair and wedges for procedures related to hip and knee adjustment. In addition, we also have observed very encouraging results in the application of our scaffolds in regenerating knee cartilage in animal trials, which takes us to our financial position on the next slide. We generated $1.5 million in revenue last year, growing 41% year on year in constant currency, and had sales of $318,000 in the quarter ending March 2021, growing at 21% in constant currency over the corresponding period in 2019. Osteopore's gross profit of $217,000 for the March quarter represents an increase of 29% compared to the same period last year. The first quarter gross margin of 68.2% was achieved, which is an improvement on both the 56.3% we achieved in the corresponding quarter last year and the 63.2% we achieved over the course of the full 2020 year. Osteopore has a tight capital structure with limited free float. The top 20 shareholders hold over 65% of the issued capital, while the board and management hold around 21% of the shares on issue. Now, at the end of March quarter, the company had a cash balance of around $7.9 million, and over the course of the last 4 quarters, an average quarterly operating cash burn of $468,000. This is significant in that it positions us well to focus on and invest in driving revenue growth over the next few years. Onto the expanding distribution network. Our challenge over the past 18 months has very much been in the circumstances that have prevented us from taking advantage of opportunities to provide the necessary training and support for both distributors and surgeons. Despite the challenges presented by COVID-19 restrictions in most countries, we managed to expand the distribution network from 10 to 23 partners. And we expect that as the COVID-19 vaccination programs roll out globally, our access to these critical partners will improve and that sales will grow. So to date, Osteopore has built its success on expansion within Asia. The cornerstone markets include South Korea, Singapore, Vietnam, and most recently in Australia. Outside of these cornerstone markets, Osteopore has prioritized geographic expansion into 4 regions and has already progressed to varying degrees in 3 of these. The priority markets are those with the highest number of relevant procedures. Last year, we signed distributor agreements for the USA, Germany, Austria, the Scandinavian countries, and the Middle East, and have already filled stocking orders in these cases. We are currently engaging with interested surgeons in the UK who are evaluating our products, and that looks very promising too. We're particularly excited by the opportunity for growth in Europe following the expansion in MDD product certifications that almost doubled access to osteo products for on-indication cranial procedures annually. Based on market research conducted by Cetus Healthcare, we estimate that the serviceable available market value for the incremental access afforded by these extensions exceeds $115 million. Germany and the UK account for just over 40% of the European market, which is expected to grow to 255,000 procedures per year by 2025. Now, Osteopore has also begun to make inroads into China. We've initiated the establishment of a subsidiary in the Suzhou Industrial Park as a prerequisite to obtaining regulatory clearance for our products. Now, China is a very time-consuming process, and we don't expect approvals within the next 2 or 3 years. But given the significance of the Chinese market, with an estimate of more than 200,000 cranial surgeries per year, we recognize the importance of working towards these necessary approvals as a key driver of future growth. We've also initiated the search for potential distributors in Japan, with strong ties to the hospitals and surgeons specializing in craniofacial procedures. And as soon as a suitable partner has been identified and engaged, we'll begin the regulatory clearance process alongside preparatory education and training. Japan is really particularly interesting for us, in that it accounts for over 120,000 relevant procedures per year. On to the penultimate slide. So in summary, Osteopore's strategy rests on 3 complementary paths to drive growth and add value this year and beyond. Our priority is to accelerate revenue growth based on existing products in core and key expansion markets. Second, we're actively exploring and validating new clinical applications for our technology, with the initial focus on obtaining regulatory clearance for dental and orthopedic applications in Australia, the USA, and Europe. Third, we are very committed to innovating products, production methods, and organizational processes to continuously improve patient outcomes, simplify surgical tasks, and reduce overall healthcare costs. So that takes us through to the last slide, where, yeah, thank you. That's sort of an overview of where we are and what we've done.
Thank you, Carl. Quite a few questions here. Can you talk us through a practical example of someone who needs a cranial procedure, they need your implant? Is the implant already there? Where does this get manufactured? Where does it get printed, rather?
So that would we would class that as a patient-specific implant. And there was a public case that here a young man had a severe motorcycle accident in Vietnam with severe head trauma. He lost a part of his skull as a result of that. So what we did is, using CAD technology, we remodeled the missing piece of bone, so that, to create the symmetry that he needed. And that then is printed, that's patient specific, based on the CAD diagrams, printed up and fitted to his skull, and off he goes. And the good news is that he's doing incredibly well. I believe that he, despite the severe nature of his injuries, he's even gone back to resume his studies. Similarly, we would do something like that in when replacing long bones, is also a patient-specific implant. We would create from the CAD diagrams a replica bone that, once it's removed, the polycaprolactone scaffold is then inserted.
So is the revenue growth, this question here, is the revenue growth driven by selling your own bone scaffolding material, or obtaining royalty rights from others manufacturing and distributing your design materials?
Good question. We produce all of our own scaffolds. So we have the technology and capability to produce these scaffolds, whether as a standard product, as volume. So for example, as I mentioned, the OsteoPlug, OsteoMesh, and OsteoStrip, those are all off-the-shelf products that surgeons can use, and that's sort of mass created. And then if a surgeon has an application which requires a patient-specific implant, what we will do is work together. They'll send us the X-rays and so on. We'll start to create the CAD drawings for that, and then produce in conjunction with the surgeon and the surgical team, start to produce the patient-specific implant.
So does that mean the technology, the printer, if you like, is that actually positioned in the country where the operation is taking place?
No, not at all. All of our work is done at the moment in Singapore. So all of the printing, irrespective of the nature of the device, is printed in Singapore, sterilized, and then sent to whichever country. For example, here in Australia, the work that we've done at the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Brisbane, for example, it's sent there and the surgeons use it. But that said, as volume increases, the technology is such that we could theoretically produce anywhere in the world and have the device sterilized so long as it's within a validated process.